Showdown in the SEC in Lexington, Kentucky versus South Carolina. Joe, a lot of people were making a lot of things this week about South Carolina. You know, Lenore Sellers ran over one of his players, tackled one of his players. They're almost getting upset by Old Dominion. Now they go to a place that, man, once that whiskey and bourbon starts flowing, that Kentucky bourbon starts flowing, that place is going to get pretty loud. And I think that Kentucky is really ready for this game. How do you see this one playing out?
So anyone who tuned in during the offseason knows that I was super high on Kentucky specifically because of their defense. And one thing was not 100% proven to me, but in their game against Southern Miss, I felt pretty good about our predictions, what we talked about with them on defense, how smothering they are. They have athletes in space all over the place to the point where things that are translatable in an SEC matchup when you're playing a group of five team are the abilities that they have with all this length to tip the ball out of the air, to pick passes off, to create pressures. I think that Jamon Dumas-Johnson has been phenomenal already for them, is going to be a high impact, just intense leader for them on defense. One thing that really stood out to me for South Carolina coming into this matchup, Blake, their offensive line's abysmal. Old Dominion made them look just really rough in that game. They were sending light pressures and they were getting home. There were unblocked guys. They had trouble at times establishing the run. They did have success in the run game when they incorporated Lenore Sellers, but there seemingly is an issue for them on their offensive line, and that's going to hold them back this season. Going up against what is the most underrated defensive front and maybe one of the best front sevens in the SEC in Kentucky's, man, this could be a really, really long day for that South Carolina offense. If they can't generate any splash plays, any sparks to their offense early, maybe a big chunk passing play, it could, I'm not going to go as far as say it's going to get ugly quick, but I think that there is some clear separation between how good Kentucky's defensive line is going up against a seemingly hapless South Carolina offensive line.
Joe, you know what the biggest concern to me with South Carolina was this past weekend? They went 5 of 18 on third down.
Can't do that.
You can't do that against Kentucky. And if you think that Old Dominion can do it to you, what do you think, Mark? Dude, Mark Stoops is licking his chops. I feel like I think that they're good. They're that good defensively. Here's the thing that I think is going to happen in this game. Kentucky is going to crowd the line of scrimmage. They're going to crowd the box. And they're going to tell Lenore Sellers to beat him. Now, when you do that, Joe, here's where you talked about those explosive plays. God forbid who a kid who is really athletic. Lenore Sellers is athletic. Now, I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But if you don't bring him down to the ground and everybody was at the line of scrimmage, those explosive plays will happen. And I think that they will adjust. You know, I'm not saying that they won't. I thought Old Dominion played them perfectly. I agree. Their offensive line looked really tentative. Raheem Sanders, Rocket Sanders, man, I thought was battling his ass off for against a group of 5 opponent. Joe, I just don't know if I see an avenue for South Carolina at the current moment, because when I look at Kentucky, you use the word that they smothered Southern Miss. There's not a better way to put what they did on Saturday. They allowed 5 rushing yards to Southern Miss. Did Kentucky this weekend?
That's domination.
Pure. You know what it is? You know what I thought about when I was watching them today? Bro, isn't this what like Alabama defensive lines did? Isn't this like what Georgia defensive lines did to opponents like this? 5 rushing yards. Dude, it is insane. And I think that in and of itself, because you got Maxwell on the outside, Joe, they're going to go bump and run man-to-man coverage, and they're just going to go in the box. Here's the other thing that I want to bring up very quickly. South Carolina gave up 35 minutes in time of possession. That is exactly what Mark Stoops wants, or Mark Smoots. Look at me. Too late. I'm already. What Stoops wants to do, nevertheless, what Stoops he wants to do. They didn't show him anything. So I think it's interesting. Let me ask you this. What did you think of Brock Vandegrift's debut?
I think he's going to be the biggest contingency point here for Kentucky, because it feels like I'm watching a former 5-star that hasn't played and is still getting comfortable, because he had some rough throws, and we're not talking about like, oh, errant pass, it was a little bit off. No, he got picked off, and then he almost had a throw that should have been a pick six against Southern Miss. I think that he's still trying to get comfortable. I think if you're Kentucky in this game, and if you're Stoops, which plays to his approach, trying to run the ball, just staying focused on that, not allowing your offense to get into those third and long situations, because second game of the year, as Vandegrift is still getting comfortable and getting used to the offense and getting used to just being a starter, I don't want to throw him into those situations, but I feel a little iffy. If South Carolina does swing this thing, it's going to be, I'll give South Carolina credit here. Their defense looked better, and their defensive line looked really good. The true freshman that they have at defensive end is phenomenal. If they get in his face and he has some bad turnovers, that's going to be how South Carolina stays in this game.
Now that can happen. Jay Macklin is the player that I'm watching out for, the wide receiver at Kentucky, because look, South Carolina also, we were talking about another game earlier. Joe, they allowed a lot of yardage, right? Like I look at what happened in that game. The OD wide receiver, Isaiah Page, had 8 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown. Jay Macklin can fly. And if Isaiah Page can get open, I do feel that there's a fairly good chance that Jay Macklin can. Here's something I want to bring up, though, too. You talked about Vandegrift. This is why I asked you. Vandegrift and turnovers. South Carolina forced 2 turnovers to Old Dominion, and they baited them. That is what could be a level of concern here. But I'm going to say this, man. I just think that defense is going to be too much for South Carolina. I'm going to take Kentucky to win this one.
Yeah, I think, man, I don't get it. A lot of people are sleeping on Kentucky this year. I don't really understand it. I feel like whenever you try to prop up Kentucky as being
brand new quarterback, brother.
That is true. But specifically for this matchup, what you're talking about, removing any of my negative experiences with South Carolina fans, you can't be a South Carolina fan and look at what you saw last week, specifically with your offensive line, and feel good about coming into this matchup. Sure, you're going to root for your team and hope that they win, but that defensive line is fantastic. Deion Walker is turning into a star and is going to be a phenomenal NFL player wherever he gets drafted. That whole group, the front seven, the linebackers, are so freaking dominant. Again, it's one of the best in the SEC, and it deserves more respect. And it just sucks for South Carolina that they're stepping into this in their second game. They don't have time to figure things out. Last week was supposed to be figure it out time, and they're still figuring shit out. So Kentucky's got to be the pick. I don't think there's any other way around that.
Couple more questions and things and topics I want to run by you really quickly before we get out of here. If Shane Beamer loses, what are we talking about going into week 3?
Look, this guy has the longest leash out of any coach for some reason. This is something that I don't know if you and I have talked about. The national landscape agrees that Shane Beamer has not really justified some of the hype that he got after that first season, and that if this is a losing season, he should be in question of keeping his job. For whatever reason, South Carolina fans and the athletic department, the administration, they love him. If you talk to anybody with connection to that university, they all say that he has plenty of time to figure it out.
What do I always say?
What?
People don't fire nice people because it's very difficult.
You're right. He's gonna get the Sam Pittman treatment. He's probably gonna get the Sam Pittman treatment.
Bingo. Look,
they have a tough schedule though, man. If you lose this game, man, they got
to win one against Kentucky or LSU. They have to win one of them. Okay, and I think it's very tough.
What record does that get them if they do that?
If they win one of them,
yeah. If they win one of those, like what, 4-5-7? Is that what that gets them?
I mean, Joe, if they can beat Kentucky or LSU, are you going to really put them like? I mean, you just look at Old Dominion and say, Lenore Sellers, maybe it was a little flukish game 1, and they're running the football all over people, right? I mean, like I think that could easily be the conversation.
Just to quickly bring up with their schedule, though, is they've got LSU next. They've got Akron, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and then Wofford is their last game. They don't play. Oh, and then Clemson's their last game. Sorry. Vanderbilt's not a handout anymore.
All right, you took the words out of my mouth. Pause. Joe, they might. Joe,
they got Wofford, man. They can beat Wofford. 3-8. Man, I'm trying not to be a dick because I was a dick over the offseason and it burned me. But I'm trying. Sorry, 4. Find me more than 4 wins on that schedule that we just read. It's not on there. They're not better than Clemson. They're not going to beat Clemson.
They would need Lenore's. Look, here's what every team in the country is going to do. South Carolina, I'm going to predict your season. Here it is. Mm-hmm. Every single team is going to crowd the box, and they're going to play bump and run man-to-man coverage. And if they're not playing bump and run, they're going to just back off a little bit because they can generate picks more instead of being in bump and run. Mm-hmm. They're going to make Lenore Sellis beat them through the air, brother.
A lot of those teams have the corners to do that too.
A lot of them.
I think the thing that stinks here,
be all of them besides Wofford.
Yeah, I think the thing that stinks here, though, for a young player, you hope that they have a good first season. He looked really good as a runner. He looked like he's still figuring out as a passer. I just don't feel like he doesn't have the help that he needs to like really take the step that he could.
Where's Nick Harbor?
That was really stunning to me. I don't know what the deal with that is.
What's up with Nick Harbor? I mean, South Carolina fans, tell us in the chat, where are we wrong? What's up with Nick Harbor?
They're not going to tell us. They don't like us.
Well, it is. They actually kind of like me, which is ironic. All right. Oh yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, for whatever because of my pulmonary baseball take, whatever. Oh. Last thing that I want to get to you here. I'm going to make a bold prediction. You know, our segment of bold prediction hot takes a couple weeks ago absolutely killed it. We might need to get back to this. I think Kentucky's a borderline playoff team.
Hey man, I said that in the offseason. If there is a bonkers out of nowhere SEC team, it's Kentucky. Kentucky has a favorable schedule.
What if it's Vanderbilt?
Dude, I'm not. Don't do this. It's not Vanderbilt. Okay, late night taping. This we get a little too wild if it gets past 9 o'clock.
I'm just saying, man. I think that they're going to be really good defensively. You know, they got some money flowing up there, so we'll see.
Yep.
All right. Peace.
This video is sponsored by the online fitness training camp presented by Chris Gates Fitness. When I first started talking about Chris, about partnering with our show, not only was I excited to have a fitness sponsor for our pod, but more importantly, when I found out about how he can help people achieve their goals, I was even more bought in because when the football season starts, it is so tough to stay on top of things and also to be able to enjoy yourself on Saturdays when it's game day. With Chris Gates Fitness's online training camp, you're going to be able to effectively stay focused, consistent, burn fat, build muscle, and do it with a like-minded community of individuals working towards the same thing. On top of this, you're going to be able to get direct coaching from Chris and the ability to ask him questions with an access to a live Q&A where you can get direct personalized support from Chris himself. Don't wait any longer. If you're trying to get in shape during this fall and you want to be able to do it with the right support system, head on over to chrisgatesfitness.com/training camp or click the link in the description. And you need to do it today because you can get the first month. Personal training is expensive, folks. The first month for only $10 when you use that code RuffinoJoe. Don't wait any longer. Head on over there. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.